I woke up on the hospital gurney with my mother's contact name flashing on my phone. Third call in the last hour. I let it go to voicemail just like the other two. Ms. Chen? The nurse's kind face appeared above me. We're about to take you in. Is anyone coming? I smiled, and it didn't even hurt anymore. No, I'm here alone. She squeezed my hand, pity in her eyes. She didn't understand. None of them could. This moment, lying here alone before a major surgery while my family attended my sister's magazine photo shoot, this was exactly what I'd been waiting for. Because I remembered. I remembered dying alone in a hospital room just like this one, 3 years from now. I remembered the cancer that started small, that could have been caught early, that killed me at 26 because no one cared enough to notice I was sick. I remembered my mother's face at my funeral, her theatrical tears, her whispered, "If only we had known." I remembered my sister Melissa's designer black dress, how she'd checked her reflection in the bathroom mirror before the service. I remembered my father's absent stare, already calculating how to split my meager savings. But most of all, I remembered the last time I saw them before I died. My mother had squeezed my hand and promised she'd be there for my biopsy. "We're family," she'd said. "Nothing is more important than family." Then Melissa had landed a Vogue cover shoot, and suddenly my suspicious lymph node wasn't quite so important. I'd died 3 months later, the cancer having spread because that probably nothing biopsy kept getting rescheduled around Melissa's increasingly packed calendar. By the time I finally went alone, it was stage 3. Now, at 23, I had a second chance, and this time I knew exactly what that lump in my neck meant. "Let's go," I told the nurse, sliding my phone into my bag. Let them call. Let them send their useless, "Sorry, Mel's shoot ran long" texts. I didn't need them. I had something better than their love. I had information they didn't have, and this time, I wasn't sharing a damn thing. The anesthesia pulled me under with a smile on my face. When I woke up in my previous life, I was 18 and it was the morning of my high school graduation. The memory of my death was so fresh, so visceral, that I'd vomited immediately. My mother had been furious about the mess on the carpet. She'd been more concerned about the stain than why her daughter was having a breakdown. That should have been my first clue that nothing had changed, but I was naive, hopeful. I thought maybe with foreknowledge I could fix things, I could make them love me. I could prove I was worth their attention. God, I was such an idiot. Let me paint you a picture of my family, the Chens, pillars of our suburban community, the perfect, successful Asian American family. From the outside, we had everything. My father, Richard Chen, was a senior partner at a prestigious law firm. My mother, Jennifer, had been a model in her youth and now ran a boutique consulting business for aspiring influencers. And Melissa, my older sister by 2 years, was everything they'd ever wanted in a daughter. Beautiful, charismatic, photogenic, talented. And me? I was the oops baby. The one they hadn't planned for, the one whose birth had ruined my mother's modeling career comeback. She told me that story at least once a month, usually when I disappointed her in some new way. Where Melissa was tall and willowy with my mother's delicate features, I was average height and sturdy, with my father's square jaw and broader build. Where Melissa had been a natural at dance, piano, and basically everything she touched, I had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. Where Melissa's room was a shrine to her achievements, trophies, medals, magazine covers, modeling contracts, my room was a quiet corner where I studied myself into exhaustion, trying to earn a fraction of their pride. It never worked. My first life had been a slow suffocation. Every achievement I earned was either minimized or weaponized. Got a 4.0? Well, Melissa got a 4.2 with all those AP classes. Won a scholarship? That's nice, dear, but we need to talk about Melissa's portfolio photos. Made the dean's list at college? Radio silence, because Melissa had just booked her first major commercial. I became invisible in my own family. The pattern was so ingrained that I didn't even recognize it as abuse until I was dying. even then, pumped full of morphine and wasting away, I'd wondered if maybe I just hadn't tried hard enough. Maybe if I'd been prettier, more talented, more worthy of love, they would have cared. It took dying and being reborn to realize the truth. I had always been worthy. They had never been capable of seeing it. In my previous life, the signs of my illness had started small: fatigue, night sweats, a swollen lymph node in my neck that didn't go away. But I was in my last year of college working 2 part-time jobs to pay for expenses my parents wouldn't cover, and I ignored it. When I finally mentioned it to my mother during a rare phone call, she'd said, "You're probably just stressed. Drink more water." By the time I pushed for that biopsy at 23, I'd already wasted 6 months. The cancer had already started its deadly work. And then, because the universe had a sick sense of humor, Melissa's career had exploded right as I was trying to schedule treatment. Every appointment I tried to make conflicted with something Melissa needed. A photo shoot where mom had to be there for moral support, a meeting with an agent where dad had to review the contracts, a fashion week where they'd both promised to attend because this is Melissa's big break. I rescheduled and rescheduled, and by the time I finally put my foot down and went alone, it was too late. The treatments were brutal. I was sick, bankrupt from medical bills, and completely alone. My family visited twice in 6 months of chemotherapy, once for 10 minutes when they were in the area for Melissa's magazine interview, once for my mother to ask if she could borrow money because Melissa needed a new portfolio shot and their accounts were temporarily tight. I gave her the money. I always gave them what they asked for. I died on a Tuesday afternoon. The hospice nurse held my hand. My family didn't make it. Traffic from Melissa's promotional event was terrible, they said. Then I woke up 18 again, 5 years before the cancer, and I knew exactly what was coming. At first, I tried to change things. I went to the doctor immediately, got screened, got the lump checked. Benign, they said, but worth watching. I started tracking my health religiously. I also tried to set boundaries with my family to demand the attention I deserved. That lasted about 2 months before I realized I was fighting a losing battle. They didn't want to change. They liked our family dynamic exactly as it was. Them in the spotlight, me in the shadows, supporting and enabling and never complaining. When I tried to assert myself, they punished me with cold shoulders and passive-aggressive comments. When I tried to compete with Melissa for attention, they acted like I was being jealous and petty. The final straw came during my 21st birthday. In my first life, they'd forgotten it entirely. This time, I'd specifically reminded them weeks in advance. I'd made reservations at a nice restaurant. I'd begged for just one dinner where we celebrated me. They showed up an hour late because Melissa had gotten a call back for a major campaign and needed to practice her pitch. They stayed for 30 minutes before my mother said they needed to leave because Melissa was too anxious to stay out late before her meeting. I sat alone at that table for another hour, eating my birthday cake by myself, and something inside me finally broke. Not broke, crystallized. I didn't need their love. I didn't need their validation. What I needed was to protect myself and build a life so successful, so untouchable that they could never hurt me again. And I needed to make sure that when they finally realized what they'd lost, it would be too late. I spent the next 2 years executing my plan. I doubled down on my studies, graduating summa cum laude with a degree in biotechnology. I took internships my parents never knew about at pharmaceutical companies. I published research papers under a slightly different name, using my full Chinese name, Chen Xinyi, instead of the anglicized Amy Chen they'd always insisted on. I networked obsessively, and I monitored my health like a hawk. Every 3 months, like clockwork, I went for checkups. I documented everything. When that lymph node started swelling again at 23, right on schedule with my previous life, I caught it immediately. But this time, I didn't tell them. This time, I scheduled appointments around my own schedule, not theirs. I chose my own doctors. I prepared for the surgery that would remove it before it could ever become cancer. They had no idea. Why would they? They never asked about my life anymore. Our weekly family dinners had become monthly, then quarterly. I was always busy when they called, which was increasingly rare. I was polite, distant, and gave them absolutely nothing of substance. My mother complained once that I'd become cold. I just smiled and changed the subject to Melissa's latest campaign. Let them think I was cold. Let them think I was boring, distant, focused only on my little science job that they couldn't be bothered to understand. Let them believe I was the same overlooked, forgettable daughter I'd always been. They had no idea that I'd been recruited by one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. They had no idea that my research was revolutionary, that I was being fast-tracked for positions that would make me not just successful, but powerful. They had no idea that I'd been saving and investing every penny, that I had more money in my accounts at 23 than they'd ever managed to put away. And they definitely had no idea that I was sick. The morning of my surgery, I woke up at 5 a.m. to 15 text messages in the family group chat. Mom, Amy, can you pick up Melissa's dress from the cleaners today? She needs it for the Vogue shoot tomorrow. Dad, guys, sis. Amy, your mother needs help setting up for Melissa's pre-shoot dinner tonight. Be there by 6. Melissa. Sissy, can you also grab my vitamins from the pharmacy? The special ones I told you about? I need them for my skin prep. I stared at my phone, lying in my quiet apartment, and felt nothing but satisfaction. Because 3 weeks ago I'd mentioned, casually in passing, that I had a minor medical procedure scheduled for today. My mother had said, "That's nice, dear," without looking up from Melissa's portfolio. I hadn't followed up, hadn't reminded them, hadn't sent calendar invites or texts or updates. This morning, not one of them had remembered. I texted back, "Can't help today, busy with that procedure I mentioned. Good luck with the shoot." Mom's reply came within seconds. "Oh, that's today? Can't you reschedule? This is really important." I turned my phone off. The surgery went perfectly. Dr. Morrison, my ENT surgeon, was one of the best in the country. The lymph node was removed cleanly, and the biopsy showed exactly what I knew it would: precancerous cells. Caught early enough that a simple excision was all I needed. No cancer, no chemo, no death sentence. I woke up in recovery with flowers from my research team and a fruit basket from my department head. My mentor, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation, just a happy coincidence, was sitting in the visitor's chair, scrolling through her iPad. "Hey, superstar," she said when she saw me awake. "How are you feeling?" "Like I just dodged a bullet," I said, my voice rough from the breathing tube. "That you did. Dr. Morrison said the margins looked great. You'll need monitoring, but he's optimistic this was caught early enough for full clearance." I nodded, tears pricking my eyes, not from pain or fear, but from the overwhelming relief of having someone, anyone, actually care. "Your family couldn't make it?" Sarah asked gently. "They didn't know it was serious," I said, which was true from a certain perspective. They didn't know because I hadn't told them, and I hadn't told them because they'd proven in both lifetimes that they wouldn't care. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she didn't push. She'd met my family once at a company holiday party. Once had been enough. "Well," she said, "you've got us. And after you recover, we need to talk about that promotion to senior researcher. The board was very impressed with your latest paper." I smiled. In my previous life, I'd been a struggling temp worker when I got diagnosed, with no insurance and no support system. This time, I had a 6-figure salary, comprehensive health coverage, and a team of colleagues who actually respected me. This time, I was going to survive. And more than that, I was going to thrive. I spent 3 days recovering in my apartment before my mother finally called. "Amy, why didn't you tell us it was serious?" Her voice was shrill, accusatory. "I ran into Dr. Morrison's nurse at yoga and she mentioned you had surgery." "Surgery, Amy? We had no idea." "I told you I had a procedure," I said calmly, stirring my soup one-handed. My neck was still bandaged, but I was healing well. A procedure could mean anything: a cleaning, a checkup, not actual surgery. "What was it for? Are you okay? Why didn't you call us?" "You were busy with Melissa's shoot. I didn't want to bother you." "Bother us? Amy, we're your family." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. "It's fine, Mom. Everything went well. I'm recovering at home." "Well, we should come over. Bring you some food. Your father and I—" "That's not necessary. I have everything I need." Amy. Her voice shifted, taking on that wounded tone she used when she wasn't getting her way. Are you punishing us? Because we missed your thing? We explained that Melissa's shoot was. I'm not punishing anyone, I interrupted. I'm just recovering. I'll call you when I'm feeling better. I hung up before she could respond. She called back 3 times. I let it go to voicemail. My father sent a terse text asking if I needed financial assistance with medical bills. I replied with a simple no, thank you. The truth was, I was done. Not in an angry, explosive way, not with dramatic confrontations or tearful ultimatums. I was done in the way you're done with a book you've already read, a movie you've already seen. I knew how this story ended, and I wasn't interested in giving them any more chapters. They'd had 23 years to love me. They'd had 2 lifetimes, if you counted the do-over. They'd chosen Melissa every single time. Now it was my turn to choose. And I chose me. For the next 6 months, I became a ghost in my own family. I didn't block their numbers, didn't make dramatic announcements, I just faded. Replied to texts with brief, polite responses. Declined dinner invitations with vague excuses about work. Stopped sharing any real information about my life. My mother complained to relatives that I'd become distant. Melissa posted on Instagram about how sad she was that her little sister was too busy for family. My father asked his secretary to send me birthday and Christmas gifts, gift cards, generic and impersonal. I sent thank you notes and continued with my life. Because while they were busy noticing my absence, I was busy becoming extraordinary. The research paper I'd published was gaining traction in the pharmaceutical world. My work on targeted drug delivery systems was revolutionary, a method of encasing cancer medications in biocompatible nanoparticles that could be directed specifically to tumor sites, minimizing side effects and maximizing efficacy. I'd started this research in my previous life, in the scattered hours between chemotherapy sessions, scribbling notes on napkins in hospital waiting rooms. I'd never gotten to see it through. This time, I had resources, support, time. The paper led to a patent. The patent led to interest from major pharmaceutical companies. By the time I turned 24, I was being courted by executives, offered research grants that had more zeros than I'd ever imagined. Dr. Sarah Chen became my mentor, my advocate, and the closest thing I had to family. You're sitting on a gold mine, she told me over coffee one morning, 6 months post-surgery. These drug delivery systems could change cancer treatment forever. You could license the patent, or you could start your own company. Start a company? I'd never considered it. In my previous life, I'd been too sick, too poor, too unsupported to dream that big. Why not? You have the science. I have the business experience and connections. We could partner, build something that's actually yours. Yours. The word resonated in my chest like a bell. For 24 years, nothing had been mine. My achievements had been minimized, my struggles ignored, my life overshadowed. Even my name, Amy instead of Xinyi, had been chosen to make things easier for everyone else. But this research, this breakthrough, this future, this could be mine. Let's do it, I said. We shook hands across the coffee table, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 lifetimes: hope. Building Nanomed Solutions took a year of brutal work. Sarah and I became co-founders, with me as CSO, Chief Scientific Officer, and her as CEO. We brought in 3 other researchers I'd worked with, all brilliant, all hungry. We raised seed funding from biotech investors Sarah had cultivated over her career. We worked 18-hour days, ate too much takeout, and slept in the lab more often than not. It was the happiest I'd ever been. My family had no idea. How could they? I'd long since stopped telling them anything meaningful. When my mother asked about my little science job, I said it was fine and changed the subject. When my father asked if I was still doing that research thing, I said yes and asked about his latest case. They didn't know I was a co-founder of a startup. They didn't know I'd been featured in Scientific American. They didn't know venture capitalists were throwing money at us, or that we were in talks with 3 major hospital systems about clinical trials. They didn't know because they didn't ask. And I didn't volunteer. Meanwhile, Melissa's star continued to rise. She landed a major beauty campaign. She got a reality show deal. She dated a minor celebrity, and their breakup went viral. My parents were in heaven, posting about her constantly, attending every premiere and event. I watched from a distance, scrolling through their social media like an anthropologist studying an alien culture. They looked so happy in those photos. The perfect family, minus one daughter who was never in frame. I didn't even feel angry anymore, just detached. Like I was watching strangers play out a script I'd already memorized. Then, 18 months after my surgery, everything changed. Nanomed Solutions secured FDA approval for Phase 1 clinical trials. Our targeted drug delivery system was going to be tested on actual patients. The news hit every major scientific journal. We did interviews with Nature, The Lancet, MIT Technology Review. Sarah and I appeared on panels at conferences. My face was suddenly attached to headlines about revolutionary cancer treatment and the future of oncology. That's when my phone started ringing. My mother called first. "Amy, we saw you on the news. Why didn't you tell us about this company? This is incredible." "I mentioned it," I said mildly. "You weren't interested." "We were always interested. We just didn't understand how big it was." "A co-founder? Our daughter is a co-founder of a company? We need to celebrate. We're coming over this weekend with—" "I'm actually traveling for a conference," I said. "In Geneva. I'll be gone for 2 weeks." "Geneva! Amy, this is amazing. We had no idea you were doing so well." I almost laughed. "Didn't you?" There was a pause. "What does that mean?" "Nothing, Mom. Look, I have to go. My flight leaves in an hour." I wasn't actually leaving for 3 days, but she didn't need to know that. Melissa called next. "Sissy, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't tell me about your company. This is so cool. We should do an interview together, like the Chen sisters. Beauty and Brains or something. My publicist said it would be great cross-promotion." "I don't think so, Mel." "Why not? Why not? It would be good for both of us, and Mom and Dad are so excited. They want to throw you a party, invite all their friends, show off their genius daughter." She giggled. "I mean, I'm used to being the star, but wow, you really did something big." "Thanks," and I said flatly. "You sound weird. Are you mad about something?" Was I mad? That was the thing. I wasn't. I was nothing. Their attention, their sudden interest, their transparent attempts to bask in my reflected glory. It all just felt empty. "I'm not mad," I said honestly. I'm just busy. I'll talk to you later." My father's email arrived that evening, longer than any communication he'd sent me in years. "Amy, your mother told me about your incredible achievement with Nanomed Solutions. I had no idea you were involved in something so significant. As your father, I'm extremely proud. I would love to discuss your business structure and perhaps provide some legal guidance. I have extensive experience with intellectual property law and could be a valuable resource. We should also discuss your financial planning. With this kind of success, you'll need proper estate planning and asset protection. Let's have lunch this week. I'm clearing my calendar. This is too important to postpone." I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. The calls and texts increased. My mother wanted to schedule a family photo shoot. Now that both our daughters are successful, we should document it. Melissa wanted me to appear in her Instagram stories. My father wanted to reconnect over dinner at his country club. I deflected every attempt with polite excuses. Work, travel, prior commitments. I wasn't rude, I wasn't angry, I was just absent. After 2 months of this, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there with shopping bags full of what looked like homemade soup containers and expensive fruits. "Amy," she brushed past me before I could speak. "We need to talk. You've been avoiding us." "I've been working," I said, closing the door slowly. "For months? You can't spare one evening for your family?" She set the bags on my counter, looking around my apartment with barely concealed shock. It was nice, really nice. I'd moved to a high-rise downtown, a place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city. My furniture was modern and expensive. Original art hung on my walls. I'd bought myself a baby grand piano and finally taken the lessons I'd always wanted. My previous apartment had been a studio in a bad neighborhood with furniture from garage sales and walls so thin I could hear my neighbors arguing. My mother had visited once and spent the entire time suggesting I move somewhere more suitable. She'd never offered to help with rent, of course. "This is quite a place," she said, her tone caught between impressed and accusatory. "You must be doing very well for yourself." "I am." "And you didn't think to share this with your family?" I moved to my kitchen, putting physical distance between us. "Share what exactly?" "Your success, your company, your life." She gestured wildly. Amy, we're your parents. We raised you. We supported you, and you just disappeared?" The laugh that escaped me was sharp and unexpected. "Supported me? Of course we supported you. We fed you, clothed you, sent you to good schools. You did the bare minimum required by law not to be charged with neglect," I interrupted. "That's not support, that's obligation." Her face paled. "Amy, do you know when my birthday is?" I asked suddenly. "What? Of course I know. It's in March. April 15th. I'm 25 now. You forgot my birthday this year. And last year. And the year before that." "That's not fair. We've been so busy with Melissa's career. Do you know what I studied in college?" She hesitated. "Science, biology, or something?" "Biotechnology with a specialization in pharmaceutical engineering. I graduated summa cum laude." "You didn't come to my graduation." "Melissa had a campaign shoot." "Do you know what my company does? What my research is about?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I develop targeted drug delivery systems for cancer treatment," I said quietly. "Specifically nanoparticle-based carriers that can direct chemotherapy drugs directly to tumor sites, minimizing systemic toxicity. I started this research because I watched people die from treatments that were almost as deadly as the disease. I wanted to make it better. I've been working on this for 3 years. I've published 12 papers. I have 4 patents pending, and you didn't know any of this because you never asked." "Amy, that's not fair. We didn't understand. You didn't try to understand. There's a difference." I moved to the door, opening it. "Thank you for the soup. I appreciate the gesture, but I have work to do." "You're really going to throw us out? After everything we've done for you?" "What have you done for me, Mom?" I asked, genuinely curious. "In the last 5 years, what have you actually done?" She stared at me, her face a mixture of shock and anger. "We're your family." "Family is supposed to show up," I said. "You've spent my entire life showing up for Melissa. You couldn't show up for my surgery. You can't even remember my birthday. But now that I'm successful, now that I have something you want to brag about, suddenly you're interested." "That's not. We always loved you." "Maybe you did. But you never liked me. You never chose me, not once." I stepped aside, gesturing to the hallway. "I'm not angry, Mom. I'm just done. I've built a life without you, and it turns out I don't need you in it after all." "Amy, goodbye, Mom." She left, tears streaming down her face, and I closed the door on her and 25 years of choosing to be overlooked. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. 2 weeks later, my father tried a different approach. He sent his secretary to deliver a formal letter requesting a business meeting to discuss investment opportunities and legal representation for Nanomed Solutions. I replied through my own lawyer, "Ms. Chen appreciates your interest but has adequate legal representation and is not seeking additional investors at this time." Melissa tried next, showing up at my office with a camera crew for her reality show. "Surprise!" she announced to the reception area. "I'm here to see my amazing sister." My assistant, Marcus, a wonderful gay man in his 30s who'd become fiercely protective of me, blocked her at the elevator. "Ms. Chen isn't available for unscheduled visits, and we don't allow filming on company property without prior legal clearance and signed releases." I watched from my office on the security camera feed as Melissa's smile faltered. But I'm her sister. Ms. Chen has been very clear about her privacy preferences, Marcus said smoothly. I can schedule an appointment for next month if you'd like. Next month? I just want to say hi. Next month, Marcus repeated. Or we can end this conversation and you can leave. She left, and I sent Marcus a bonus. The family group chat exploded with messages. Melissa, why are you being so mean? Mom, Amy, this is ridiculous. We're your family. Dad, your behavior is concerning. We need to discuss this in person. I muted the chat and didn't respond. Then 3 months after my mother's apartment visit, they played their final card. They organized a family intervention. I arrived at what I thought was a meeting with my lawyer about a new patent application, only to find my entire family waiting in the conference room. My parents, Melissa, my paternal grandparents, 2 aunts, and 3 cousins. Amy, my mother stood, tears already flowing. Thank God! We've been so worried about you. I looked at my lawyer, Michael, who shrugged helplessly. They booked the conference room under your father's firm name. I didn't know. It's fine, I said, setting my bag down. What is this? We're here because we love you, my father said, standing as well. And we're concerned about your recent behavior. My behavior, I repeated. You've cut us off, Melissa said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. You won't return our calls. You won't see us. Amy, we're family. Whatever we did to upset you, we want to fix it. I looked around the room at these people, these strangers, who shared my DNA and nothing else. They looked genuinely distressed. My grandmother was clutching her purse with white knuckles. My aunt looked uncomfortable. My cousins seemed confused about why they were even there. You want to know what you did? I asked quietly. Yes, my mother said. Please, Amy, help us understand. I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar. I've been tracking something. Let me share some data with you. I projected my phone to the conference room screen. A spreadsheet appeared, color-coded and detailed. This is a record of every major event in my life for the past 7 years, I said, my voice clinical. Doctor's appointments, graduations, award ceremonies, presentations, birthdays. The green marks indicate events you attended. The red marks indicate events you missed. The screen was a sea of red with scattered drops of green. Now, for comparison, here's Melissa's events for the same time period. Another spreadsheet appeared, almost entirely green, with a handful of yellow marks for partially attended and barely any red. The room was silent. For those who struggle with data visualization, I continued, you attended 3 of my events in 7 years. You attended 94 of Melissa's. The 3 you attended for me were my high school graduation, which was the same day as Melissa's award ceremony, so you were already dressed up, my 21st birthday dinner, which you left after 30 minutes, and a family holiday party that I happened to be at. Amy, my father started, I'm not finished. This chart shows communication frequency. I tracked calls, texts, and emails. Over the past 5 years, you've initiated contact with me an average of 1.2 times per month, usually to ask me to do something for Melissa. You've initiated contact with Melissa an average of 14.7 times per month. I switched to another chart. This shows financial support. Melissa has received approximately $340,000 from you over the past 7 years for her career, living expenses, and emergencies. I received $2,000 total, a graduation gift of $500, and one-time $500 I was told was for textbooks, but I later learned was borrowed from my college fund to cover one of Melissa's portfolio shoots. I paid my own way through college working 2 jobs. My mother was crying openly now. My father looked ashen. And this, I said, pulling up a final document, is a timeline of my medical crisis 2 years ago. I was diagnosed with precancerous cells in my lymph nodes. This could have become stage 3 lymphoma if left untreated. I mentioned needing surgery 3 weeks in advance. None of you acknowledged it. The day of my surgery, you asked me to pick up Melissa's dress and attend her pre-shoot dinner. I had major surgery alone and spent 3 days in recovery without a single visit or call until mom ran into my surgeon's nurse at yoga. The silence was deafening. You want to know what you did? I said, looking at each of them. You failed me, consistently, completely, for my entire life. And the only reason we're in this room right now is because I became successful enough to be worth your attention. That's not true, my mother sobbed. We always loved you. Maybe, I acknowledged. But love without action is just words. And I'm done accepting words as substitutes for presence. So what do you want? My father asked, his lawyer voice emerging. Money? An apology? What will it take for you to forgive us and move past this? Smiled, and it wasn't kind. I don't want anything from you. That's the point you keep missing. I don't need your money. I'm a multimillionaire. I don't need your connections. I've built my own. I don't need your approval. I've proven myself without it. And I don't need your love anymore. I've learned to live without it. You can't mean that, Melissa said. We're sisters. We share parents, I corrected, but we were never sisters. Sisters show up for each other. Sisters care about each other's lives. You've called me 3 times in 7 years, Melissa, and all 3 times you wanted something. I've been busy. We've all been busy. The difference is I made time for you. You never made time for me. I gathered my things. This meeting is over. Amy, wait. My mother reached for me. I stepped back. I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I'm just done. You can go back to your lives and continue being the perfect Chen family. Post your photos, attend your events, celebrate Melissa's success. I won't interfere. But I won't participate either. You're really going to throw away your family? My father demanded. You threw me away first, I said simply. I'm just honoring your choice. I walked out of the conference room, ignoring their calls, and felt lighter than I had in 2 lifetimes. The next 6 months were glorious. NanoMed Solutions completed Phase 1 trials with a 78% success rate, unprecedented in our field. We secured $50 million in Series B funding. I was named to Forbes 30 Under 30 in healthcare. Sarah and I were invited to speak at the World Health Organization. I bought my dream house, a minimalist modern home in the hills with a home lab, a music room, and walls of windows. I adopted 2 cats. I started dating a brilliant oncologist I'd met at a conference who thought my research was sexy. I took up pottery and got really good at it. I built a life so full and rich and entirely mine that my family's absence didn't leave a hole. It left space for things and people who actually valued me. My family made a few more attempts to reconnect, but they became increasingly half-hearted. A birthday card from my mother with a generic message. A LinkedIn connection request from my father. A DM from Melissa asking if I wanted to get coffee and catch up sometime. I responded politely and vaguely and let the conversations die. Then 1 year after the intervention, Melissa's career imploded. Her reality show was canceled after 2 seasons. A scandal involving her ex-boyfriend damaged her reputation. She made some poor financial decisions, bad investments, lavish spending, trusting the wrong people. My parents, who'd poured all their resources into her career, were financially overextended. My father's firm was struggling with the economic downturn. My mother's consulting business dried up as social media influencing became oversaturated. The perfect Chen family facade cracked, and everyone could see the rot underneath. I learned about all of this through the tabloids and industry gossip. None of them called me for help. Why would they? They'd made it clear I was only welcome when I was convenient, only valuable when I reflected well on them. But I was curious about what would happen next. The answer came on my 26th birthday, the same age I'd died in my previous life. I was hosting a party at my house, 50 people, friends, colleagues, my research team, my boyfriend Daniel, Sarah and her husband, people who'd chosen to be in my life and who I'd chosen right back. We were in my backyard eating catered food, laughing, celebrating not just my birthday, but Phase 2 trial results that had come in that morning with even better success rates than Phase 1. I was happy. Genuinely, completely happy. Then my doorbell rang. Marcus, who'd come as a guest but would always be protective, went to answer it. He came back looking uncomfortable. Your family is here, he said quietly. All of them. They say they need to talk to you. The party went silent. Everyone there knew my story. I'd never hidden it, never pretended I had family support. Do you want us to send them away? Daniel asked, standing beside me. I thought about it. I could send them away. Let them stand on my doorstep, rejected like they'd rejected me countless times. The old me, the people-pleasing, boundaryless girl I'd been in my first life, would have felt guilty for even considering it. But I wasn't her anymore. Let them in, I said. But the party continues. They don't get to ruin this day. My family filed into my backyard like refugees seeking asylum. My mother looked older, her careful makeup unable to hide her exhaustion. My father looked diminished, his expensive suit hanging slightly loose. Melissa looked the worst. Her trademark confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. They stopped when they saw the party, the laughter, the obvious celebration of a life they'd never been part of. Amy, my mother said, her voice breaking, happy birthday. Thank you, I said politely. What can I do for you? We need my father started, then stopped. We wanted to see you, to apologize. For what, specifically? They looked at each other, a whole conversation happening in glances. For everything, Melissa said finally. For not being there. For taking you for granted, for being terrible family. I nodded. Okay. Okay? My mother repeated. Yes, okay. I hear your apology. I didn't say I accepted it. I didn't say I forgave them. Just that I heard it. Amy, we're in trouble, my father said, his pride clearly choking him. Financial trouble. Melissa's career has had some setbacks, and our investments haven't. We need help. Ah, there it was. You need money, I said. A loan, my mother amended quickly. We'll pay you back, but we're about to lose the house and Melissa's apartment and… No. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. No, my mother repeated. No, I'm not giving you money. I'm not bailing you out. I'm not saving you from the consequences of your choices. Amy, please, Melissa said, actual tears streaming down her face. I know I was a terrible sister. I know I took you for granted. But we're family. You're not my family, I said gently. You stopped being my family the day you chose a photo shoot over my surgery. You stopped being my family every birthday you forgot, every achievement you ignored, every time you made me feel invisible in my own life. You were my family by blood, but you never acted like it. And I don't owe you anything just because we share DNA. So you're just going to let us suffer, my father demanded, after everything we did for you? What did you do for me, Dad? Really? You provided legal minimum care while actively emotionally neglecting me. You never supported my dreams, never attended my achievements, never made me feel wanted. And now you think you can show up here on my birthday at my party full of people who actually love me and guilt me into saving you? I looked at all three of them, these people who'd shaped my entire life through their absence, and felt nothing but pity. I died once because of you, I said quietly. I was sick and alone and nobody cared, and I died. I got a second chance and I chose to live it differently. I chose to build something without you, and I'm not going to let you take that from me now. My mother went white. You what? I smiled. They thought I was being metaphorical. Let them think that. I'm going to give you some advice, I said. The same advice you gave me my whole life. Figure it out yourself. Work harder. Make better choices. Be more grateful for what you have. All those things you said when I asked for help, for attention, for love. I'm saying them back to you now. Amy, please. Melissa reached for me. I stepped back. You should go. This party is for people who chose to be in my life. You chose not to be. Live with that choice. Security, yes, I'd hired security for the party, knowing they might try something like this, appeared at Marcus's subtle signal. My family was escorted out of my house, out of my party, out of my life. The party resumed. Someone turned the music back up. Daniel wrapped his arm around me and kissed my temple. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm perfect," I said, and meant it. The aftermath was predictable. My family tried to contact me multiple times. They sent lawyers with cease and desist letters claiming I'd promised them money I hadn't. They tried to sell stories to tabloids about ungrateful daughter abandons family in crisis. But I'd built relationships with journalists covering my work, and the stories never got traction. They attempted to sue me for elder care obligations. My lawyers destroyed that in 30 seconds. Eventually, they gave up. My parents downsized to a small apartment. My father took a junior position at a smaller firm. My mother got a job as a receptionist. Melissa moved back in with them and started working retail while trying to rebuild her reputation. I watched from a distance, the way you watch characters in a TV show you're no longer invested in. I felt no guilt, no obligation, no familial pull to save them. They'd made their choices, I'd made mine. Meanwhile, my life continued to flourish. Nanomed Solutions went through phase 3 trials with flying colors. We got FDA approval 18 months later. Our cancer treatment began rollout in hospitals across the country. Patients who would have died were living. People who would have suffered through brutal chemotherapy were getting targeted treatments with minimal side effects. I was saving lives. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was saving strangers while refusing to save my family. But my family's crisis was self-inflicted. These cancer patients, they were actually innocent. On my 28th birthday, 2 years after my family showed up at my party, I received a letter. Not email, not text. An actual handwritten letter delivered by post. It was from my mother. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. "Dear Amy," it began in her careful handwriting. "I don't expect you to read this, and I don't expect you to respond. I'm writing this more for myself than for you, because I need to say these things, even if you never acknowledge them. You were right about everything. I failed you as a mother. We failed you as parents. We chose Melissa over you, not because you weren't worthy, but because she demanded attention and you didn't. You were easy. You didn't complain, didn't cause problems, didn't need us. And we took advantage of that. We told ourselves you were fine, that you were independent, that you didn't need us like Melissa did. The truth is, we were lazy. It was easier to focus on Melissa's dramatic needs than to notice your quiet ones. It was easier to celebrate her obvious achievements than to understand your complex ones. It was easier to let you fade into the background than to fight for equal attention between you. I see now what we did. I see how we damaged you, and I see, finally, too late, the extraordinary person you became in spite of us, not because of us. You owe us nothing. I know that now. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I'm writing to tell you that I'm sorry, truly sorry, and that I understand why you've cut us out. If I had it to do over again, I would show up for your surgery. I would remember your birthday. I would ask about your research and actually listen to your answers. I would choose you just once over Melissa, but I don't get to do it over. You do, apparently. And I'm glad you're using your do-over wisely. Be happy, Amy. You've earned it. Your mother." I read it 3 times, sitting in my home office with my cats on my lap. I waited for tears, for anger, for some emotional response. What I felt was closure. She understood. Finally. Too late for it to matter, too late for it to change anything, but she understood. I filed the letter away and went back to work. On my 30th birthday, Nanomed Solutions went public. Sarah and I stood on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, ringing the opening bell. Our company was valued at $3.2 billion. My personal net worth was $847 million. Forbes did a cover story. The woman who saved herself, and thousands more. The article detailed my research, my company, my success. It also mentioned briefly that I was estranged from my family and chose not to comment on why. The reporter had tried to contact my parents. My mother had declined to comment. My father had said only, "We're very proud of Amy's achievements." Melissa had said, "I miss my sister." I read their quotes and felt nothing. That evening, I hosted a celebration at my house. Now, a sprawling estate with a full lab, a music hall, and a guest houses for visiting researchers. Over 200 people came. Daniel was there. We were engaged now, planning a wedding. Sarah and her family, my research team, my friends, the families of patients whose lives our treatment had saved. I stood on my terrace looking out at the party, at all these people who'd chosen to be in my life and who I'd chosen back, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was my family now, this chosen family that showed up, that cared, that celebrated my victories and supported me through challenges. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Saw you on the news, congratulations. You always were brilliant. I'm sorry I never told you that when it mattered. Dad. I stared at the text for a long moment. Then I blocked the number and put my phone away. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And some victories are sweetest when they're entirely your own. I'm 32 now. Nanomed Solutions has changed cancer treatment across the world. Our second-generation treatment is in trials. I've won awards, given TED Talks, been invited to advise governments on healthcare policy. I married Daniel in a small ceremony on a beach, surrounded by the family we chose. Sarah was my maid of honor. Marcus caught the bouquet. My cats were ring bearers because we could, and it was adorable. I'm expecting my first child, a daughter. Daniel and I are already planning how we'll raise her to know she's valued, loved, and seen. How we'll show up for her always, not just when it's convenient. Sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I think about my first life, that lonely, painful death, that desperate hope that my family would show up. And I think about this life, how I chose differently, how I protected myself, how I built something extraordinary from the ashes of their neglect. I don't regret cutting them off. I don't wonder if I was too harsh. I don't feel guilty for refusing to save them, because the truth is, I couldn't save them. They had to save themselves, just like I did. I saved myself twice, once by being reborn and once by choosing to live without them. And that's the victory that matters most. My daughter kicks, reminding me of the future I'm building. A future where she'll never know what it's like to be unseen by the people who should love her most. A future where showing up is the baseline, not the exception. I place my hand on my belly and smile. They missed my surgery for her photo shoot. After Rebirth, I never updated them on my health. And I lived happily ever after.